This happened many years ago. I think I was 12 at the time. I grew up in a nice neighborhood in an old 2-story Victorian house. We lived in the foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains, on a corner of a quiet street. It was a cool area to grow up in, lots of nature to explore and a few fences to stop kids and their dogs from exploring it. I'm the oldest of 4, but at this time my parents didn't think I was old enough to stay at home taking care of them by myself for a night, so they hired a babysitter to watch us. I had a huge crush on her. She was 17 and gorgeous, so I was okay with the deal. It was just a normal summer night, warm and with a bright moon. It was late, probably around 11 p.m. My brother and sisters had gone to bed, and the babysitter was watching TV downstairs. Me and my little brother shared a big room on the second floor that looked out over the front yard. I was reading in my bed, when suddenly my brother, in a frightened, tight voice, called my name. I thought he was dreaming, but then he stood bolt upright in bed and stared out the window. This obviously freaked me the fuck out, so I ran over to him. My brother then pointed out what he was looking at and asked me, "Who is that man?" Down in the front yard, about 20 yards away, was a lanky, long-haired man looking up into the sky. His arms were outstretched and he was slowly spinning. Then he started moaning. I immediately started to panic. This was how some of those horror movies start. I jumped up and ran out into the hallway, for once glad that my parents had not put me in charge. Waiting for me in the hallway were my sisters, who had been woken up by the noise outside. And the babysitter came tearing up the stairs, wide-eyed. Now I was really scared. Nobody knew what to do, and the sitter wasn't offering up any ideas. For some reason, I decided to call our neighbor across the street. He always had a bad temper, but he knew us. I guess I figured he wouldn't be scared. I grabbed the phone, and he answered a few rings later. I asked him if he could see anyone out in front. We saw the man out on our front lawn, which our neighbor had a clear view of from his house. He was obviously annoyed, but he did go look. A couple minutes later, he returned to the phone and told me there was nothing there and you need to go back to bed. We were in no state to do that. I quickly returned to my brother's window and looked again. Big moon flooding the lawn with light. No man. We tried to listen for the moaning. Nothing but the symphony of crickets. The sitter was not going back downstairs alone, and nobody else was going to sleep anytime soon. We all agreed we should go down together and make sure all the doors and windows were locked. We crept downstairs and quickly broke into 2 groups to check all the doors. I was with the sitter to check the front, my siblings the back of the house. All went well. Locks were secured, no weirdos barging into the house. But the sitter wanted me to look outside one more time. I was still fucking scared, conjuring up way too many Friday the 13th and Halloween scenes in my head that my friends and I had covertly watched on their cable during sleepovers. But I didn't want to show it in front of the woman of my dreams. Just one more look, and maybe, just maybe, I'd get to be in something like that Revenge of the Nerds movie I also wasn't supposed to watch. So I quietly moved to the front window which faced the front steps to our front door. I craned my neck to look out towards the driveway and back towards the lawn where we had seen him before. Nothing. And then suddenly, he was there, running full speed at the window. Half his face was gone, a mess of blood and torn flesh. He had blood all down his shirt and on his shorts. The sitter screamed and I dropped to the floor in the most unmanly way possible. My siblings were crying in the hallway. He started pounding on the front door and yelling incoherently. I remember him saying at some point to, "Let me in, please." Even though that seemed extremely polite for a mass murderer, there was no fucking way I was going to give in to that request. Besides, I was frozen in fear on the floor. The most I could muster in a squeaky little boy voice was, Sir, we can't help you. Please go away." At least I did something. Our protector, the sitter, was long gone. He pounded on the door some more, gave a disappointed and helpless final yelp, and staggered off into the night. I just laid there for a little while. After that, my siblings ran upstairs and huddled together. Soon after, 20 minutes or so, we saw lights and sirens. The sitter had done the right thing in her flight into the bowels of our home and did something that never occurred to us, called 911. They found the bloody man wandering down the street, and our nightmare was over. Turned out he was a cyclist that went out on a full moon ride on a beautiful summer night. But he didn't see the storm ditch on our corner when he took a tight turn at a high speed. He slid on his face for at least 20 feet. He eventually came to, but he was so delirious from his injuries and the shock that he was off his rocker. He had been wandering around for a while before any of us knew he was there. We found blood trails crisscrossing the front of the property the next morning. I still feel bad I didn't help him, but I was just a scared kid. My parents didn't go out without us for a while. For years, I was traumatized coming home at night, and nothing ever came of my infatuation. I never saw her again. But my brother still loves to mimic what I said that night. That jerk. In 2002, I had been living on a mountain in southern New Hampshire for a few years. The mountain used to be mined for iron ore, so there are places at the top where the radio tower is located that has tunnels in the land. And if you fell in, no one would find you. We had a small house that was located in a clearing where there were woods all around us and a dirt road that just barely allowed 2 cars to pass each other. In the summertime, we would wake up to see spotlights shining from above and shutting off, followed by the sounds of helicopters. We knew they were looking for pot growers. I had never come across these growers, but being on the state line between New Hampshire and Massachusetts, it would not surprise me. A few years of seeing these spotlights and hearing the helicopter, it became nothing new, until one night. Our windows were open so the evening breeze would flow through the house and you could hear the comforting sounds of crickets. I woke up because there was a bright spotlight over our house. Again, I thought. I tried to go back to sleep, but for some reason I had a strange feeling. The crickets were no longer chirping. I decided to get up and check our 2 boys in the nursery and headed to the bathroom. After seeing they were sound asleep, I started to close their door when another bright spotlight lit up our dark home. It was then I noticed I did not hear the helicopters. I stood there for a moment, straining my ears. The light went out and I shrugged. I headed to the bathroom. I never turned on the lights when I went to the bathroom or moved around the house at night. Even though it was very dark and there were no street lights, I found that I knew our home well and could see pretty good at night. I went to the bathroom and again, the bathroom lit up with a spotlight over the house. I finished up and decided I would head out to the back deck and see if I could tell what was going on. But as I started to unlock the door, I had a strange feeling, like this was not a good idea. I could not figure out why, but I did as my gut told me to. I walked back to our bedroom and the light seemed to dim. I remember thinking that I had never seen the spotlights dimming before, nor had I seen the spotlights staying over our house for so long. I paused at the bedroom door, listening. I decided to wake my husband. I walked in and I saw a tall figure standing by my bed. I am 5'6" and my husband is 6'2". So when I saw the tall figure next to my bed, I thought he had gotten up and realized I was not there and was checking on me. I walked by the figure and I even put my hand on his chest. I said I was sorry, I was in the bathroom. The dim light went out and the figure headed out the bedroom door. I suddenly heard my husband snoring. It startled me. Who was standing by my side of the bed? I do not know why I never woke my husband up, but I sprinted out the bedroom door and immediately headed to the boys' room in a panic. I opened the door and flicked on a small light that gave just enough shine to not wake them up, but I could see just fine. They were both in bed. I closed the windows and doors and went to the kitchen for a knife. Someone was in my house. I started flicking on the lights and checked every room. All clear. I checked the attic and the basement. All clear. I checked to make sure all the doors were locked. All locked. What? My husband awoke and came out rubbing his eyes. He asked what I was doing. I just said, someone is in the house. Before he could react, the spotlight came back on and shut off again. Now that my husband was up, I ran to the sliders to go out to the deck. And when I went out, the spotlight went off yet again. My husband joined me and we watched something in the sky that did not make any noise hovering slowly over the trees, shining the spotlight, then shutting it off, moving a little ways, on, off, over and over until we could no longer see the light. I still have no idea what that was, nor who I saw standing next to my bed. My husband took his gun out and did a thorough check of our house. No one was there.